We spend almost our entire lives inside buildings, offices, malls, or own homes, but we almost never stop to think about the invisible network of safety features that are literally built into the walls around us. Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain on that unseen blueprint, the one designed to keep us safe by deconstructing Malaysia's new and improved fire safety codes.
No, really, just for a second, think about it. Where's the closest exit? What's the actual route you'd take? It's a pretty jarring thought, right? But it's a question that architects and engineers have to answer down to the last millimeter before they can even break ground. And that right there is the whole point. In a building that's properly designed, your survival isn't just left up to luck. It's all part of a carefully choreographed system, a kind of language of safety that's speaking to you from the structure itself. So let's learn how to read it. To get a handle on this language, you've got to start with the basics. It's fundamental grammar. And believe it or not, the entire fire code, with its hundreds of different rules, really just boils down to a handful of core ideas. Think of it like this. Everything is built around four main priorities. First, and most importantly, is evacuation, just getting everybody out safe and sound. Second is what we call passive containment, using the building's own bones, its walls and doors, to stop a fire from spreading. Third, you have active intervention, which is stuff like sprinklers that actually fight the fire. And last, there's access, making sure firefighters can get in and do their job. Every single rule we're going to look at serves one of these four goals. So let's kick things off with the one that affects us most directly, evacuation. The big question for any designer is simple. No matter where you are in this building, is there a clear and quick way for you to get out? And the codes, they have a very, very specific answer to that. They measure it with this concept called travel distance. And the key word here, the one that matters most, is actual. See, this isn't about the straight line distance to the door as the crow flies. Nope. This is the real path you would have to walk, weaving around desks, heading down hallways, going through doorways to get to safety. And this is the official rulebook for it, the seventh schedule. Now, I know it looks complicated, but it's actually a perfect example of how these codes adapt to risk. A hospital is going to have totally different rules than a factory, which is different from a school. Let's just grab one example to make it super clear. So say you're in an office building that doesn't have a sprinkler system. The absolute furthest you can be from a designated exit is 45 meters. Now, what does that even mean? Well, to put that in perspective, that's about the length of an Olympic-sized swimming pool. If your desk is any further than that from an exit, the design just isn't up to code. Simple as that. But here's something you might not think about. Getting out of the stairwell door on the ground floor isn't the end of your escape. The new rules put a huge emphasis on this idea of the final exit, making absolutely sure that the last leg of your journey from the building to a truly safe, open space is totally clear. This is what the new Clause 174A is all about. What it means in the real world is you can't have things like little pop-up coffee kiosks or extra cafe tables blocking the path right outside the exit door. The code now demands a protected buffer zone so that when you get out, you are truly out and have space to move away. Okay, so that's getting people out. Now, let's flip to the second core idea, keeping the fire in. This is where passive containment comes into play. Basically, using the building itself as a tool to fight the fire. And this is a really common mix-up, but the difference is so important. An exit door is all about escape. You have to be able to open it from the inside no matter what. But a fire door, that's a barrier. Its job is to literally hold back fire and smoke for a certain amount of time. Now, sometimes a door can be both, but they have very different primary jobs. And this is one of the biggest updates in the new code. After seeing some tragic fires around the world, the new Clause 144 is incredibly strict. Basically, for any building that's over 18 meters tall, the external cladding, the outer skin of the building, has to be made of materials that just won't burn. Period. This is a massive step in stopping fires from racing up the outside of a tall building. All right, now for the ultimate test of fire safety design. How do you apply all these rules in a building full of people who can't just get up and walk out? Hospitals are an incredibly complex puzzle, and the new codes have introduced a completely fresh strategy to solve it. So the new hospital strategy, laid out in Clause 224A, kind of flips the old way of thinking on its head. Instead of the chaos of trying to get immobile patients down endless flights of stairs, the number one priority is now horizontal evacuation. That means moving people sideways across the same floor to get them away from the immediate danger. And where do they move them? to something called an area of refuge. You can just think of it as a fireproof safe room right there on the same floor. It's a heavily protected compartment where patients can be kept safe from smoke and fire, which allows the hospital staff to manage a much calmer, more orderly evacuation.
Of course, the paths to these safe zones have to be just as protected. The code is really specific that patients have to be moved through routes like open-air external hallways or special lobbies that are pressurized to keep smoke from getting in. The whole goal is to get them to safety without ever exposing them to more danger.
And the level of detail here is just incredible. The new 11th schedule actually dictates the exact size of staircase landings. And why? It's to make sure that a stretcher can be turned on that landing while being kept completely, perfectly flat. I mean, every single measurement is thought out with patient safety in mind. Now let's jump from a huge, complex hospital to something we see all the time, a smaller building, like a shop house, that only has one single staircase. You can imagine, when there's only one way out, the rules have to be even more strict. So the updated Clause 1944 makes a really clear distinction. It splits these single staircase buildings into two buckets. First, you've got your residential buildings, like apartments, and then you have your non-residential ones, think small offices or shops. And each one gets its own specific set of rules. And here's what those rules are. For a residential building with just one staircase, the floor of the highest apartment can't be more than 12 meters above where a fire truck can get to. For a non-residential building, it's even tighter. It can only be 2 stories high, with the upper floor being no more than 6 meters from the ground. The logic here is really simple. If there's only one way out, that path has to be as short as possible. So when you put it all together, it's pretty clear that these aren't just little tweaks to some dusty rulebook. What we're seeing is a system that is constantly learning from incidents, from new technology, and from a much deeper understanding of how people actually behave in a fire. So here's a thought. The next time you walk into any building, maybe you'll see it a little differently. You might be able to spot the fire doors, guess the travel distances, and just appreciate the incredible amount of thought that went into the design around you. Because that hidden blueprint, that's probably the most important feature any building can have.